Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Luke, and I am here to host the mid-season recap of LBB19, a Big Brother game hosted on my YouTube channel with some of my best friends. It was filmed back in March. We're halfway through the season. The first juror is out the door, and we're here to talk about it. Tonight, I am joined by a good friend who was with me for the draft of this very season. We'll see how they feel about the team that they picked. It's Jodilly.
Uh, really had to bring me and clowning me like that, huh? Well, I hello. I'm so excited to be back. This has been such a fun season. Oh, so much to talk about. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So much to talk about. I think it was a very fun pre-jury phase of the game, but this first jury round has really kicked off the end game with a bang. So we'll get to it all. We'll get to it all. But first, Jodilly, how are you doing? How do you feel about the season? But how are you doing right now? Let's talk generally.
Oh, I'm well. I as the ambassador to Ascendance Live, I have to plug, watch. I'm a top four finalist, 2 episodes left. Jump on the train if you wish. Maybe I win, who knows?
Who
Um,
knows?
and I've just been living life. I've just been traveling, seeing the world, meeting new people. Okay, that's largely a lie, but in my mind, I'm traveling and I'm a free monk. So yeah, it's been wonderful. How have you been?
I've been great. I've been great. My semester started. It's not as busy as I was last year since I'm not as involved in extracurriculars, which is nice. I have a little bit more free time.
What
Um,
year are you again?
it's my last year of law school, so I
Oh,
graduate. Yes, feeling good, honestly.
well,
Um,
good luck with that.
yeah, definitely. I just finished editing the Greenhouse season 3 coming soon.
Ooh.
Um, and yeah, cool deal. So I say cool deal a lot. Jolene pointed this out to me before this.
I
It
I
wasn't.
I I love it so much. I sometimes I'll just be living life and in the back of my mind, just randomly I'll just hear cool deal. It's stunning. I am a huge fan of it. Say it
Yeah,
more.
it doesn't register to me that it's like an odd thing to say. Like it's just like slowly become just my like okay, yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm such a huge fan and I wish for many continuations of it. Don't worry at all.
Of course, of course. So yeah, remind me who was on your draft team? Because I know you mentioned that it wasn't going well for you, but I don't remember.
So my draft team is slash was that of Oscar, Derek, Kenzie, and Lucas.
Oh,
So just kind of whew, one punch after another at certain points in the season.
yeah, definitely, definitely. How do you feel about your last remaining player, Oscar?
um, okay. So what drew me to Oscar, because he was my very first pick, what drew me to Oscar initially was the fact that I felt like, he had a quiet confidence and he struck me as someone who knew what he was doing. And for the most part, you know, it does kind of seem like Oscar had been one of the people just, alongside Lucas and Meredith, where people are like, oh, he's kind of not in with the main group of the gals. So, he'll find his way out. And you know what? If out of everyone in the cast, if there was anyone that I had to pin my last complete hopes on, I feel like I could do a lot worse than Oscar.
I
Oscar has
agree.
Oscar has lived up to what he said in the beginning, where he's like, I will be a physical player. And, preseason, anyone could say anything. But I think Oscar is definitely someone who kind of is what people thought Lucas would be. Where like they were like Lucas is a mover, a shaker, a strategic threat. He can do things. I think that's Oscar, and I don't think people necessarily are as aware to just how much Oscar could be capable of. So I'm excited. Oscar all the way.
Oscar all the way. We love him.
You do.
Uh, okay, great. So I was thinking we could go largely round by round and just kind of talk about the big, what's it called, headlining moments, because we've had
Sure.
quite a few of them so far. Uh,
Yes.
as we go into round one, what would you say is like the overall theme of the season, if you could have one?
Oh, like the theme of the season from round one?
Yes, like as how these players are playing. Like, what's the main? Is there any main through line that you've noticed?
I, you know what? Uh, I knew the cast was like smaller, but even so, I thought that the rewinds would be held on to a lot longer. I did not expect the rewinds to have to come into play round one.
Right.
And well, not all of them. Some people just got to enjoy a singular piece of paper. Shout out. First, okay, this isn't necessarily the theme. I did not expect Lucas to be as feisty and spicy as he was.
I know.
I really did not. And I, you know what? I don't regret picking Lucas for my team at all. Lucas has been one of my favorite people in the season. I loved it. I didn't realize that the couples would become such a strong focal point
Yeah.
from the jump. And I think it makes sense. I think, you know, the first round is the one round where you really have to grasp at straws to justify getting anybody out. And
Right.
when all of a sudden that wasn't necessarily an option, the fact that so many powers came into play, like a round that looked so simple at the beginning, leading to it was Oscar and Bowen on the block at the end, right? And
Right.
it came down to one vote. And I think that definitely set the tone for the rest of the game in the sense that like none of y'all are safe. Anything can happen, and these buttons are for real. So I think that definitely became a theme based off of that first round.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's been a strong element of unpredictability. I do think the buttons have been largely gameable,
Yeah.
but it adds enough of a footing for those underdogs to find something to cling on to. So I think there's always an option for every player, and I think that's been consistent as well.
And the rewind reveal is so dramatic, minus the times when people like forgot to do it because everyone knew like it's not getting played. But you know what? The whole opening the box and I loved that. And
Thank
I
you.
I wondered if the thing you had to do was like you had to play it before the last person entered the room for the ceremony or something like that. Was that what it
Yes,
was?
yes, more or less.
That was tricky to game too. And the fact that Lucas eventually was just like, yeah, just come get me when because like Meredith's gonna be out here, so just come get me. I was like, he wanted to do that in front of everyone. He wanted to risk that. But then again, I mean, Allie picking it up in front of everyone, you know. I guess nothing can remain secret in the click Big Brother 19 house, huh?
Yeah, it really can't. That was one of my concerns when I was coming up with the rewind twist. Like, what happens if there are two people who want to play at the same time and are just kind of waiting for the other person to play it? I
Hmm.
think kind of where I landed was if you end up in that situation, it's your fault for not keeping it a secret. So
Yeah.
to justify it, but
And
luckily it kind of worked out perfectly, honestly.
yeah,
Because I think for both pairs, you had one known rewind and one secret.
yeah,
So Liz was public, everyone knew, even though Liz tried to come.
unfortunately.
And for Allie's, everyone knows Allie's, but Abrielle's is a secret, or at least it was for a minute.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
and yeah, I think I think I would like to say I did that intentionally, but not
mhm.
necessarily.
Yeah,
And I think that that added a fun dynamic to it. That one of them knows who they're racing against, and the other one doesn't necessarily. So I think it kind
right.
of forced the hand to make it go faster than it may otherwise have.
Absolutely. And I think it was also fun to watch that with Ali and Abrielle, them both having it led to a very close relationship. Whereas with Derek and Liz, not so much. You know, it's also a tough question of like people like group the couples together. So obviously, I think in the beginning, Lucas and Meredith and a little bit of Liz were like, why don't we just work together as a four? And then here comes Derek, who's like, no, put them up. Get rid of those two. I'm cool, you know. And
Yeah.
the rewinds kind of play a part of that. Like, do you trust the person who is holding your fate with this power in their hand? You know, I liked watching that as well.
Yeah, I was surprised that the couples didn't even, at least initially, try to work together at all.
Mhm.
I think for whatever reason, Lucas felt slighted by Liz not entertaining saving him with the veto, which didn't really make sense to me. And so that was a rivalry. And then Derek trying to get Meredith nominated was a mess.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very odd. I think especially now that we're post pre-jury and Meredith is the last person left from this couple group.
Yeah.
What I think that's a topic I want to get into. So,
Sure.
well, I guess, is there anything else that those couples could have done? I have a lot of notes for Liz and Derek, but with Lucas specifically, I don't know. I think he was kind of cornered from the start, honestly.
Yeah. I think Rita also said during that first week that a large part of why she went for the people she went for was not necessarily because of the couples, but because of she just didn't have a strong personal relationship with them.
Yep.
I believe 50-50 of that is probably true. Like, there is probably a part of they didn't just talk to her, because I think it was a couple of people who said, like, I haven't bonded with Lucas. But on the other hand, it's like, you secretly want to go for the couples. Like, you in the back of your mind, it makes sense to do that. So I guess the only thing I could see for Lucas was like win more, like,
Yep.
and talk to the HOHs more, which is such general cliche advice. But honestly, the also I know this is also skipping ahead, but like that one HOH where like Tiffany was like blocking the clue with her back so that Meredith and Lucas wouldn't see it. I was like, oh, my heart. I wanted one of them to win it that week. That would have been so fun.
Yeah.
Tiffany.
We'll get to Tiffany. We'll
Hmm.
get to Tiffany. I have a few notes on Tiffany. But
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. I think Lucas especially had some really bad draws in the competitions. Because one thing is every button had competitions that would have always gone with it. So the order
Oh,
of the buttons pressed also decided the challenges for the round.
that
Um,
makes that makes sense. And I mean, again, skipping ahead, but that competition too, where people can team up and help each other, and they basically like decided amongst each other who wins HOH and who wins veto. It's a tough one to have super early on, because the groups that are there, it just like it validates them working together even more so. So it really just came down to luck of the draw or the buttons.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. And honestly, I think that grouping and that collusion and that challenge had a lot of ramifications. We'll get there. As far as, I'm sorry, my phone is popped up and was on. Sorry. Oh my goodness, mess.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, we've hit on most of the things I wanted to talk about in round one. I think another note for Lucas was how, as iconic as the red piece of paper line was, I think he did develop a reputation for himself instantly in a way that I think Derek and Liz also did, because since Liz saved Derek immediately, they were
Yeah.
out of the couple who was definitely together and definitely a functioning couple. And then Lucas had placed himself out there as the more aggressive player between him and Meredith.
Yeah.
So I think
I
as early as round one, I think they were all labeled.
I really wonder how different the game would have went for Liz if she did not save Derek. Like if she just discarded it. Because I feel like my guess would be like, okay, Liz is gonna let her partner go. Let's just get rid of Derek and get rid of that altogether. But then Liz potentially looks like she was genuine. She really trapped herself with, not with being caught about lying with that veto, that
Yeah,
rewind pattern. That was really tough. And then saving Derek after like throwing out hints of like, I don't want to necessarily be paired with Derek. I'm gonna save him with the veto. It was just a tough draw. I wonder what she could have done too.
yeah, it's tough. I also honestly wonder how much she intended to lie about that rewind, because in many other conversations she was just honest about it. I don't know why in
Yeah.
that one specific Oscar conversation she
Well,
intended
Oscar
that she did it.
Oscar also did her no favors by spreading that. I feel like
Right.
there were definitely people where she could have said, I don't have it, and they would have just been like, okay, I believe you, let me just sit on that. But that Oscar, Maddie, Kenzie, Allie foursome that were kind of feeling each other from that beginning. Oh, tough to do that lie in front of literally all of them, and then whew, it spreads.
Yes, very tough draw for Liz.
Mhm.
And I do think that maybe she could have leaned more into the Girls Alliance narrative. And by like
Yeah,
not using the veto, she could say, no, I'm with y'all, not necessarily with my couple. If anything,
yeah,
y'all can vote him out. I think that's
right.
probably Liz's best move. Um, but
I
it's
will
tough.
say,
She,
I, re-
I
I
think she
remember
honestly got the worst draw, maybe of all the players, unfortunately.
probably, and she won that competition too, and that put a target even more so on her back. And
Yeah.
I remember that first round when Rita was like, kind of like, she was looking for business partners. I remember thinking, like, Rita is a businesswoman because, like,
Yes.
she's fully like asking, what is your resume? What can you do for me? And I remember Liz's answer was something to the effect of, well, with me, I'm a very bad liar. Like, you can see everything on my face. I can't hold anything from anybody. And I remember thinking, that's like an excellent, like, pitch, in my opinion, to be
Yep.
saying like, I'm just completely transparent as a person. And then she lied about the rewind, and I was like, oh man, that's really tough. That's really tough.
Yeah,
Poor Liz.
immediately proved herself to be very self-aware, I guess.
Yeah.
I, I do want to talk about Rita's HOH because I think that
Mhm.
was, I think it set the tone for the entire pre-jury. Regardless of whether or not the Girls Alliance was an official thing, though, I think in operation it was.
Yeah,
Uh, what did you think about Rita's approach to her HOH? Was it successful? And also, I do want to talk about her relationship with the guys too, because I think there's.
sure. I think Rita's HOH, I did not expect someone who was at least outwardly so social to be so like also like strategically minded off the jump, because she was ready to make the deals. As much as she said like, I didn't want this, she was ready for it. I do believe that even though like when she threw out that Girls Alliance, no one said to her face no, but like literally 5 minutes later or whatever, Josh is coming up to her and saying like, the girls don't want this, like drop it, you know.
Yeah.
But then I think it definitely, like, what is the word, aftershock, the ideas of that definitely kept the girls at least somewhat together. Do I think like all the girls in the house working together was a thing? No, it wasn't. But I think having that just like in the air, it kept people who were obviously on diverging paths like in the same, people like Abrielle and Kenzie, who clearly
Yeah.
had very different priorities, were still like close together because of, we could do a girls thing. The option is open. And if it wasn't for Rita's HOH solidifying that, I think divides would have been clearer and larger and made obvious earlier. And yeah, I think that's definitely thanks to Rita's, whether it was intentional or not.
I agree. And I think another interesting aftershock of it all is the girls who were actively saying, like, oh no, this isn't gonna be a girls' alliance. Like we didn't even ask for
Mhm.
this, but we're still cool, right?
Yeah.
So I think the solidarity and rejecting it kind of
Yeah.
created a pseudo group in a way.
Yeah.
Uh, and and it interestingly, I think binding together Josh, Desh, and Oscar more than I think otherwise would have happened.
Yeah.
Uh,
I I think that in combination to also I forget the exact name of it, but the twist where the extra immunity comp the following round, where everyone was just like, well, the girls were like, okay, we can't expose that the girls are like kind of sticking together. So like who's a neutral person we can all give it to? Oh, Josh. And everyone just rushing Josh as he exits the confessional room. I think that probably lit a spark in Josh's head of like, there's something weird going on here. And then, you know, from the girls come the gays, and
right.
that's kind of what bonded the three of them together. And the fact that Rita got pulled into that instead of like the girls, because she was the one who threw out the girls alliance, but now Josh, Desh, and Oscar feel closer to Rita as their number four. That was an interesting side effect. And I didn't think they would want Rita, honestly. I thought they were going to pull someone more like Maddie,
Yeah,
someone who,
I, I, I find it surprising. I think, at least from the footage I can remember, I think Rita was just so much more proactive in having one-on-one conversations with everybody,
Yeah.
especially those three. So I think because Josh saved Rita with that pause immunity in week two. In fact, we're honestly moving into week two now anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of started to solidify things. And I'm trying to remember when she and Oscar started to get closer as well, but consistently Josh, Dash, and Oscar started mentioning Rita as someone they trusted specifically,
Right.
despite Rita's strong girl solidarity from week one. So I think, interestingly, despite facially having a polarizing HOH, ended up being in a pretty much a middle spot here, in my opinion.
Right. And who were Oscar's initial nominee? Well, no, because the pause was given before initial nominees, right? The
Yes.
competition happened first. Oscar, who are Oscar's initial nominees again? It was
It
Liz
was
and
it was Derek from the start because he won veto as well and kept it the same.
right. I mean, I remember thinking in the moment, it also makes sense for Oscar to give the immunity for Rita because if there is some deviation, because like everyone wanted one of Liz or Derek to go home. And if there was any deviation with Oscar, who would it be? Well, obviously, it would be the HOH who just nominated him. That's
Right.
the sole chance. So I thought it definitely made sense for Josh to save Oscar because it makes it look to the group that, like, oh, he's really with us. Because, like, everyone effortlessly loves Josh. Like,
Oh,
even now, consistently, everyone's just enamored with him. So I think it was definitely smart to save Rita, and he could have just left it at that. But even as the rounds progressed, like the two of them they're genuinely friends, is my
yeah, I
prediction.
think
Who knows,
so.
maybe they hate each other now, but they're genuinely friends. So yeah, it was a good opportunity to like make a relationship with someone he didn't necessarily know as much, and now it's bloomed into so much more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we should talk about Josh's social game here. I think he is far and away the most popular player in the house and has
Yeah,
been for a while.
I I feel okay. I don't know if I'm gonna say officially I feel foolish for saying in the beginning. I remember thinking to myself based off of the first episode. I remember thinking Josh is not necessarily someone who I am going to predict to be the full package because he like his first episode was so much based off of I did this before and I wasn't happy with how I did. This time I'm going to come back bigger, badder, meaner, better. And I
Mm.
was like, we'll see about that. But Josh has been someone who truly has stuck to it. Like he has had a plan, he's had his people, and like even though he's not in the scary girls alliance, he's still someone that everyone has just effortlessly loved and feel like they could talk to about a vote and poll if they needed to flip someone. Like especially with these eliminated players so far out the door, I feel like so many of them were like, "Oh, but I have Josh." And let
Yeah,
me go confirm with him. And he's straight up been like, no. And they're still like, okay, but I can still flip Josh. You like there's something about Josh where just you want to believe he's your friend. And I think he knows that and he utilizes it so much and so well.
yeah, he has such just a playful way of going about his strategic conversations in a way that's just
Mhm.
you're having fun playing the game with him.
Yeah.
And I think it makes him come across as a lot more collaborative than he actually is.
Yeah.
um,
He definitely watching how he interacts with different people, he definitely changes how he speaks to certain people based
yes.
on who he's talking to. The way he speaks to Rita is different from the way he speaks to Desh, is different from the way he speaks to Ali, to Abriette. Like he knows how to like cater to the person he's talking to. And I think that's a very deadly ability. Look at Josh go.
Yes,
I
and he
Oh no,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna
I was gonna say that
yeah,
I still think that if anyone needs to take like a huge shot, which based on how I think the jury's gonna be all about taking huge shots,
yes.
for sure, a big shot to everyone would be Josh or Allie. Like they are walking into the jury. I think everyone was like they're the biggest like social players. So we'll see what happens if he knows how to manage that. But this pre-jury, now that it's book shut, Josh has been amazing for sure.
Yeah, he killed it, and I think he's just very good at whenever he's very good at choosing when he needs to push for something, and when he's not pushing, he's just letting everyone else feel like they're driving. He has a
Yeah,
very good reaction for when to be an active player.
absolutely.
And whenever he's passive, I think he gets more done than I think most of the other players do.
Yeah.
And speaking of Ali as well, this second round is, I think, when she really started to spike up as one of the major strategists in the game. In fact, if I remember correctly, she was the one who had the plan for rigging the pause game to make sure that Derek and Liz would be on the chopping block. And I also think she was the main person pushing for Liz to go.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on Ali as a player in general, especially with this second round in mind?
Ali is someone that I am 100% ready to admit that my first initial thoughts on her, she's completely blown away. Because I remember thinking like, oh my God, she's 19. She's going to be so like out of her element. She's going to be so shy. But like off the bat, Ali hit the ground running. Like she was ready to make deals. I felt like her gameplay so far, I want to use the word like sophisticated, and it shocks me that she's never like done this before, right? She's a complete newbie to you.
Yes, this was her. This was her first exposure to anything like this. I don't think she even watched Big Brother before this, honestly.
She is a natural. She's absolutely a natural. And I do think, throughout there have been multiple people that are like, oh, Ali's definitely the biggest threat. But so far, the amount of times she's been able to keep her finger on the pulse has been amazing. And especially in the pre-jury phase where I feel like anyone who slightly deviated from what the house, like the majority wanted, they got immediately pinned for it and it made them stick out. And Ali consistently has been able to say like small things of like, I don't necessarily agree with this plan X, Y, and Z, and get away with it. And honestly, I feel like she's one of the few people that's been able to do that multiple times and get away with it. And I think that just kind of speaks to Ali knows how to talk. She knows how to speak, and good for her. I think she's the main character. She's been so fun to watch.
Yes, I'm obsessed with Ali. She will play again. I am obsessed with her. I think she's very good at maneuvering within the game. I think one of the biggest signs that she's a new player is how quick she is to share information and voice her thoughts.
Yeah.
I think we'll get more into that as we get more towards the first jury round. But I think for natural, there were still a few.
Yeah. And I mean,
there's room to learn always.
Yeah. I remember also, I guess this isn't necessarily round 2, but I remember also for the round that it was because she was in the room when Kenzie revealed to Abrielle that Kenzie had leaked the rewind to Lucas.
Yes.
And I remember walking into that scene, Ali was on the same side as Kenzie, where she was like, Lucas should stay over Derek, honestly, because Lucas is someone who wants to work with the two of us. And after Kenzie leaves that room, Ali just is able to completely like process the information, recalculate, and be like, okay, objective updated, keep Lucas, get rid of Kenzie, bond with Abrielle, and accomplish it from just that. Like she had close to no time to like strategize with herself, and she was able to like make Abrielle feel like, oh yeah, Ali's totally with me, even though Ali walked in looking to change Abrielle's mind and being against Abrielle's initial plan. Ali's a quick thinker. I'm very impressed.
She really is, which is probably the best skill you could have for my season specifically, since it is just one day.
Wait, what? All of it's one day?
All of it's one day. We start at 7:30 and end around 1:30 or 2 in the morning.
Wow.
It is a long day. It's a sprint as well. So it's intense. It's intense.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So that's another thing to note for new viewers.
Hmm.
It is a very rapid game, and what you're seeing is more or less a live feed of what happened,
Hmm.
a complete feed, which is cool. So you get to see the whole game. Um,
Right.
and speaking of the McKinsey leak of the rewind, that brings us into week 3.
I do
Uh,
want to say, other highlight I wanted to talk about from round 2. I I cannot imagine being on the block and the other nominee fully said, I hate you all. I'm targeting every single one of you. If you beat me, you cannot trust me, and you're all going down. And still, that person is saved unanimously. I
yes.
watched the exit interview. Liz was a very good sport about it. I was floored
Yeah.
that I was not, Liz really couldn't have done anything. There was
No,
nothing
seriously.
Liz could have done.
Do
Poor
you think they
girl.
made the right decision?
I mean, ultimately, seeing that they are able to get Derek 2 rounds later, or
Right.
1 round later, or 2 rounds later.
It was the very next round.
Oh, yeah. I think that the people who are saying that Liz is capable of winning competitions and making huge moves, I think is true. I think that a lot of people were saying Derek will never like snap out of just being here for fun and he will always be just an easy person to boot. I think that part did not end up being true because clearly the next round we got to see a lot more into what Derek was like actually thinking and he had genuine like plans. But I think, Derek wasn't able to win anything, which was what a lot of people were banking on.
Right.
And so I think ultimately it was the right decision. I think Liz was capable of a lot more.
I agree, and I think Liz had a much more quiet persona in the house,
Hmm.
while Derek was all like very much a loud character in the house and very much a character in the
Yeah.
house. Uh, so I think by booting Liz as well, even though you lose the threat of having an intact couple, you still have
Hmm.
the large visibility of Derek. So I think
Right.
for people not planning to work with either of them, Derek is definitely the easier one to sink later.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I agree.
Liz, I love
Poor
her.
Liz, we love Liz.
We do. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers to Liz. We're obsessed with you. So moving into round 3, we have the fast forward week. So we have veto and HOH happening at the same time, simultaneously. And ultimately, the challenge ended up being very collusion friendly. And we had a group of 4 assist each other for the HOH and veto. They won both of them. It was
Mhm.
Ali, Abrielle, Maddie, and Mackenzie, which I think is a very important grouping that was visible in the house.
Yeah.
So, first, what was your take on the challenge? And especially now with the benefit of knowing what happens to the members of that 4, do you think it was smart at all to visibly work together in that to that degree?
I honestly, I if it were me, I say I would 100% go for it because, it's still so early and it's really hard. There's always like that one round for everyone that like changes the game from, oh, we're just vibing to, oh, we're making plans. And I think when you have a group of 4, even if everyone sees it and is gossiping over in the corner, if you're a part of that 4, at least for me, I would just be grateful to be like, okay, like this is a really good like building block for us to actually work together as a 4 moving forward. So if it were me, I would have 100% been like, yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. Let's work together. I think it was Allie who said like the round before, like, my game is so social. I can't win any competitions. Otherwise it's gonna be so tough. And then she's like, let's work together. I was like, Allie, that is your goal. This is not the path to getting there. But
Right.
ultimately, yeah, if I was in that 4, I would have 100% taken the free money on the table. And I think as well, one thing I didn't consider going into HOH and veto being like decided at the same time, I like usually you only talk with the HOH before nominations because like they're the ones deciding fate. But with HOH and veto both being made known early, it split the conversation both ways where you had to juggle talking with Ali and talking with Abrielle. And ultimately, I felt like that, in a way, kind of made it a little bit like a double eviction where everyone was a little bit more frenzied because, like, so much is just decided in one ceremony that everyone was on pins and needles a little bit more. And I just I felt like that four was going to be like so tight and so close and so good. And for 5 minutes they were. That was a great four. They were really powerful, and I enjoyed them a lot. But man,
Yeah,
tough.
I agree. I think that it is a smart move to do it here, especially when you have such visible targets in Lucas,
Yeah,
Derek, and Meredith, because you can easily pass it off as, oh, this was just the first group that got there. We wanted to make sure that they didn't get it,
right,
and then it's a lot less threatening. And
right.
ultimately, I think the downfall of at least two of these four, so far from what we've seen, is not from the visibility of those four acting together, but the fact that Mackenzie was betrayed and then thought that it was those three intact. So it was all within the four.
Yeah,
I think I agree with you. In a vacuum, it is smart to just kind of game the competition and then ask for forgiveness after.
yeah, for sure. And
Definitely.
I mean, honestly, even with Lucas and Derek both being nominated, I with Liz and Derek, I felt like as a viewer, I was like, the right decision is to send Liz home. With Lucas and Derek, I honestly didn't know which one was the correct person to eliminate. And I felt like I felt like I saw the Derek I thought I was going to see from the
Yes.
beginning, that round in deliberations, when he said, like, okay, so now my plan is to gravitate towards Josh and towards Rita. And like, he didn't know that they were like a group, but like, even without that knowledge, he was still able to say, I feel like my best chances are working with Josh and Rita, and maybe pulling in an Oscar, maybe pulling in a Desh. And I was like, this is an exactly correct read. Where did
Right.
this come from? You're on the money. And so I was like, and especially because so many people were on the fence with Abrielle saying, no, we need to get rid of Lucas. You know, Derek's not necessarily going to be a threat. I was like, this could be deadly either way, because you know Lucas is going to be on fire if he comes back from this. But Derek will be on fire too, and he'll be hiding it. So I didn't if I didn't know which one was the right decision, if to send home Lucas or Derek. Honestly, two very strong competitors. And that's not just because I drafted them both.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly don't know where I would have landed personally. Um, because I think genuinely, since it was so split, that kind of shows that I think it was ultimately just the individual decisions of each player. I
Yeah.
really do think so. So it just came down to which one each player felt more comfortable with. Because I think the big fear with Derek was how much of a wild card he was, and
Yeah.
anyone could be in trouble if he wins. But Lucas, I think more people had an idea that they would be safe if Lucas won, which I
And
think ultimately what happened to Derek, like his downfall.
also, I think it's always my theory. I love watching orgs. And I've come to like a theory that like some people are meant to play from the top, where they're controlling everything. Everyone loves them. They have the top down view. Some people are meant to do that. Whereas some people are better when they play from the bottom, when they have to scramble, when they have to fight super hard, when their back is against the wall, the blood's flowing, everything. I This was like Lucas's first interaction with any sort of game, right? Or
Right.
relatively, other than through like knowledge of Meredith. Lucas is someone that I feel thrived playing from the bottom. I think if Lucas found himself in power positions, I don't think Lucas would have naturally wanted to have those one-on-one conversations as much, and to seek out like who really wants to keep me around. I don't think Lucas would have been engaged as much to go do those. But I think when he saw, oh, I'm getting nominated round one and I have the secret advantage that I told someone about, and then they automatically used it against me, like, oh, I think that fear that was struck into him made him push a lot harder and fight a lot more. And I don't think Derek necessarily had that fear in him. And Lucas just had that extra step that helped him move forward, which I was still shocked by. I thought Derek was going to be our Victoria for a second there. But
Yeah,
man, yeah.
yeah, definitely. I really thought that we were going to see Derek blossom into the okay, turn it on mode. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a joke anymore.
It was
And I think it really almost happened because I think if he survives, he has a much better chance than Lucas did ultimately in the very next round.
right.
And yeah, it's just it's tough. It's tough. I think he was maybe a little bit he was a bit too late in trying to form those serious relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But at it's just difficult because it was so close, and I think ultimately in the next round with Lucas's elimination, I think a lot of it came down to uh, again, I think Lucas is good at saving himself and advocating for himself, but he didn't form the networks necessary to get to
Yeah.
that next stage of the game,
Ooh,
unfortunately.
that's a really good way to put it. Yeah, because Lucas had more one-on-one relationships, but I don't think he had like a group in mind. Where it was like the reverse with Derek, where he knew the group, but he just didn't have like the well-rounded enough relationships with everybody. Yeah,
Right. No, exactly. I think they needed to blend
I'm writing
because
that down. I'm stealing it
yes,
from
no,
you
write that down.
immediately.
That's very good because Derek had the structure down. He saw the structure of the house, but didn't have
Yeah.
the relationships for anyone to listen to him. But
Mm-hmm.
Lucas had those relationships, but didn't think in the group mechanics necessary to put
Right.
action to what he was looking to find in the game.
Which both of those very impressive given that both of them
Yes.
were like kind of on the outs from the start. So the fact that both of them were able to come to their own big realizations their own way, like at all, is very impressive. Have them back too. Bring them
Oh,
back.
absolutely. Oh, I will have pretty much everyone on this. Like we bring people back often, so I'm sure
Oh,
everyone
good.
in this cast, if they want to come back, we have plenty of room for them.
Ah,
And
ending.
so fun, so fun. Sorry, let me see if I had any other notes. We talked about Mackenzie's leak of the rewind.
Oh,
But let's go into that a little bit more. Uh, I
she.
I was in the room when that scene was filmed, and I knew that I had watched her lose the game. In that
I.
moment.
I. Okay. Throughout the rounds previous, Kenzie like having like a relationship with Lucas was something that no one else caught on to. And
Yeah.
I remember when she just had Luke, I don't forget which round, but there was a point where she just had Lucas on the couch and she was like, listen, you are on the bottom. You and Meredith, you both are. But listen, there's more value for you in my game for you to be here because I see that you're genuine. You're not, and I was like, she sees them because for a lot of the people, I felt like in the I, a lot of people that were like grouping together from the beginning, Kenzie was one of them. I felt like you can only say people aren't talking to you so much. It is a two-way street. And I felt like a lot of people were just like writing Lucas and Meredith and etc. off. And Kenzie was the one person I felt like was like, no, I see you. Like, and in Big Brother, where it's one person per week who makes a big decision, if any of them wins HOH, Kenzie's safe. And I was like,
Absolutely.
oh, she sees them. And nobody knows she's cutting these deals. So this is like perfect. Kenzie is protected by everybody. And then when Kenzie told Lucas about the rewind, I was like, ooh, that's a little risky. But actually, I don't think Lucas is going to leak anything because this is Lucas's like one chance to get in with the main group is Kenzie. So you cannot burn that bridge. So I was like, oh, this is good. This is good. And then Kenzie's like, Abrielle, I told him. Yes, I did. And I was like,
It's the worst way it could have gone.
I, my educated guess is that she thought that that four were all so close at that point that even if Abrielle wasn't upset, she wouldn't act on it, and Allie wouldn't act on it. But if that was her guess, that turned out to be wrong.
Yes.
And I just remember being like, why would you tell them? It was, and you could tell, like, Abrielle is very smiley. She's very warm and receiving. But like, even though she was like smiling, like the 3 seconds that passed between Kenzie confirming that she gave the information about the rewind, the 3 seconds of silence, I was like, oh, Abrielle's done with her. Abrielle's like done. And gosh, I honestly, if Kenzie didn't telling about the rewind, honestly, I can see Kenzie being like in the best position with everyone because everyone wants her around. No one had ever thrown Kenzie's name out before that.
Until
Oh,
that exact moment. Because then at that point, Abrielle and Allie want to keep the rewind a secret. So the only two people who have been spreading it are going to be Lucas and Mackenzie. So you need to get them both out as quickly as possible.
right.
So it's like begging them to. And then of course the next button gives them the perfect opportunity to get rid of both of those people.
Did Kenzie? Yeah, Kenzie did know that Allie had the other one. So that makes it even worse because you know that those two are bonded. Man, that was a tough one. And I was surprised to see just how hard like Kenzie was going to bat for Lucas to not even be on the block. Because like Lucas had shown that he could be on the block and have the votes to stay. And you know, if Abrielle's dead set on nominating Lucas, you know, there isn't that much you can do in that scenario. But to see Kenzie fight so hard, I didn't realize that the two of them were like that. Like Kenzie felt that connected to Lucas, where she had to like go blanks to the wall in order to save him. I was shocked that it went that far.
Yeah, it's tough because I mean, obviously, if she wanted to work with him so closely, like she needed to help him change his position in the game. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I think at that point, the better move is to just try to get Meredith to be the prime target instead of Lucas.
Mm,
I think
yeah,
that's probably the better move. Like, say something like, "Oh, Meredith has more experience in these games. Lucas hasn't
right,
done this before. Like, do we really have the right read on who's more threatening here?" Kind of thing.
right.
Um, I think that might be her better angle, but yeah, I think because and also in doing that, it kind of shows that Lucas has made so much headway with someone who should be aligned with the bigger group. So
Yeah,
if anything, that also accentuates how threatening he is. So it's just
yeah.
yeah, it
Did
just compounded.
Kenzie have like a suggestion for who Abrielle should put up instead? I can't remember.
I honestly can't remember.
Okay. Because
Um,
if she did go into that and was just like, just not Lucas, you know, that's also kind of a misstep. But who knows? Maybe she did have a name and I am just off of it. But yeah. Are we still around? Are we on round 3 or 4?
we're still in round three, but that's pretty much the end of it. I think we kind of covered the rest of Derek's game, unless we have any final comments on him before moving.
I want to see him play Survivor because how, a Derek filled game where he made top 5, was it?
Top three.
I want to see a game where he makes top 3. That must have been wild. Ah,
It's a fun season. It's a fun season. Trial by fire. Check it
oh,
out.
I'm adding it to the watch later playlist as we speak.
And if you want quick viewing, I have shortened versions of all my seasons where they're pretty much condensed into 1 2-hour episode where I hit all of the main points as well.
Oh,
So yeah,
the
just
more
to
you
plug more features in my channel.
know.
Okay.
Please.
Moving on to round four, the home button, the dreaded home button, was finally pressed. Pressed by Lucas. I think this was a major misstep for Lucas. I think as someone who is visibly in the bottom, having a higher chance of getting evicted is a pretty bad decision to make, especially since he knew the consequences of that button. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I remember when they were deliberating about which button to press. And not only that, Kenzie had wanted that press like at the jump. Like once she knew it was a double, she was like, get it out of the way, get it out of the way. And I can see the mentality of that, of like, this is the deadliest button because it sends two people home. So just get it over with so we don't have to worry about it later. But I personally always hate double eliminations in anything. Big
Yeah.
Brother, Master Chef, who's the winner of the barbecue, like any competition with the double, I personally just hate it because it's always, always, always going to rob someone.
Yeah.
And I, I do give Kenzie kind of more of a pass because she wanted it from the beginning, and I don't think she knew how deep in it she was. So, but yeah, now that you mention it, the fact that Lucas did know it, what were the other buttons that were available at that
There
point?
was skip available. I'm trying to think of what else is left at this.
Invisible HOH was available. Yeah.
Yes, anonymous HOH mute button is still there, and replay is still there.
No one knew what replay was, right?
Correct. No one knows what replay is.
Honestly, Lucas should have pressed replay because like so many people were like, "Oh my god, someone's gonna come back." If I Lucas Dodoy, that's like the button to press if you want to press a button. But me, it's an all-in gamble, like a double eviction. And if Lucas had won, or if someone from his side had won that, it would have been a huge victory because
Yeah.
even though someone else from that side probably would have left, like at least you're getting one of them. So it was an all-in gamble, but yeah, not the one I would have taken.
Yeah, and that's true too. Because he did do well in the competitions. He never won one, but he was consistently toward the top. So
Mhm.
I guess taking a win there does let you skip around in like in actuality. So
Mhm.
I guess it's justifiable, but it's too risky for me personally.
And
Uh,
honestly, I remember the episode going into like after you find out the double, the cliffhanger for that one is who the HOHs are. Dash and Tiffany winning. I remember being like, I felt like, at least for me, Dash and Tiffany weren't necessarily like characters that have been in the limelight. So
yeah,
when they both won, I also didn't see them as like two people who were like Tiffany had talked about, oh my god, I love Dash. But like up to that point, I hadn't seen those two as like people who were like collaborating together. So I remember when they were crowned, I was like, how is this gonna go? Because I don't know what either of those two are looking for in terms of criteria of how to send somebody home. And I think the results were both equally. I didn't walk into it expecting for Dash's HOH to take out someone who was at the bottom. I thought Dash would be more inclined to like work with the Lucas and Meredith fantasy. And I definitely didn't expect Tiffany to want to make a move against one of the girls because I felt like she was one of the people that was kind of like sliding on by because of the aftershocks of it. But man, moves were made. Moves were made on both of those.
I think this was a very important positioning round for both of them, and I agree. Before this round, both of them hadn't been necessarily major characters in the show, but I think that this round specifically kind of established both who they were as players and kind of the angle they were going moving forward.
Right.
So let's start with Dash because he did have the straightforward HOH that probably would have been what happened if the home button wasn't pressed.
Right.
So he goes for the couple. And while I think that's just going with the flow, I think what Desh did well, in my opinion, was really establishing how straightforward he was with everyone, even Meredith as well. I think that was an important conversation. Is how he told Meredith that Meredith would go up, but also like kind of gave her an out for like who would sit next to her, like with the whole Maddie of it all.
Mhm.
So I think even though it was a predictable outcome and didn't necessarily push him forward, I think it made him seem more dependable as a player. What do you think?
Right. And I mean, it's kind of like it's also one of those neutral moves where for the group of like Dash, Josh, Rita, Oscar, going for someone who's like also at the bottom doesn't like it's not going for the other side of the house, but it buys all of them time to continue like being in the background. You know, they're doing the obvious thing, so people aren't going to necessarily read into it as much. And it's another week where people aren't necessarily going to put that four together because I don't think up to that point people had necessarily like suspected that, which is perfect. So a nice neutral round, you know. And also on that note, I also didn't realize how close Dash and Kenzie were, where Kenzie felt comfortable enough to with Dash after her nomination to just be like, let me tell you everything about what Tiffany is. And I think it was because Dash had done a neutral move, it opened the door for anyone to come and be like, okay, you know what you're doing, so let me tell you what I'm doing, because you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think it had more dividends than what it may appear to have been on paper. Like, it was a simple move, but it got a lot done.
I agree. And it also gave room for Josh and Rita to get moving with that 6-person deal that they were starting to string together.
Yeah.
Being Oscar, Josh, Desh, Rita, Abrielle, and Tiffany, right? So it's basically that core four that we were talking about, but adding Abrielle and Tiffany. So
What a weird mixture as
I
well. Like,
I
the alliances that have been created on paper, to me, I would not think that they would stick. Like,
yeah.
even like with the 4, like, the alliances I expected to be obvious so far have not gone well. And this alliance of 6, I didn't expect for it to do well either. But, especially inviting Abrielle into the 6. I remember when they were talking about Abrielle, I was like, out of all the people, Abrielle is probably like the least. Abrielle is probably the most connected out of the people you're not working with,
Yes.
So pulling her into it could potentially be a bad read because it just gives her more and more cushioning. But do I think Abrielle's going to stay loyal to it? No. Do I think Tiffany is going to want to stay loyal to it? Yes, because she doesn't necessarily have that many other groups. And on top of Abrielle and Allie saying, okay, Kenzie's out, we need a new number, let's have it be Tiffany. Now, if Tiffany's like, but wait a second, Abrielle, we're in this group, so let's keep them, maybe that will peer pressure Abrielle into working with the 6. And if that happens, crazy. Sorry, I broke out the
the map. No,
right. That would be
I
wild.
agree. I think Tiffany essentially replaced Mackenzie in the power structure in this round, but because Mackenzie fell out of it and Tiffany got power at the perfect time to kind of like prove that she could function in that same role.
Right.
And I think and I think that 6 also got lucky in approaching Abrielle because I think they probably should have realized that her and Allie were close. However, as we find out in that first jury round, Abrielle has more doubts about Allie than I think might have been noticeable by the other players at that point.
Right.
So I think those were 2 compounding factors that kind of, in addition to the different pressures that you just spoke of, kind of did not immediately be the talk of the house.
Right. And a fun group. I wish nothing but the wildest of times for them.
And they're coming.
I bet. They're here. But even with Lucas going, I still have to. It was sad to see Kenzie go too. I mean, she had it. She had a final 5 spot locked in my eyes. Like, she was there, and to just see it just like fall apart so fast. And I completely understand her frustrations about, like, when you think someone is with you more than they actually are. And I mean, I guess most of her anger was directed towards Tiffany, which Tiffany, the fact that she was saying, like, oh my God, Dash hasn't said anything towards me. Yes, nominations are in 10 minutes. He has said nothing, Kenzie. That's so wild. Like, yeah, they're not in jury yet. Do what you want. They're not going to affect you winning the game. But, like, Kenzie is the wrong person. If someone has to leave a scathing review on Yelp for allies to look for, I would suspect Kenzie to leave a scathing review, and leave a scathing review is what Kenzie did. So.
Yes, exactly. She called out the 3 who she helped win the challenge. And yeah, I think that's the thing. She didn't. I don't think it ever registered to her just how much of a betrayal that rewind reveal was.
Yeah.
So I think from her perspective, it was all completely out of nowhere. But for
Yeah.
the alliance, they saw her as the first betrayer. So it was a bad mix ultimately, a
Yeah.
complete misunderstanding.
But I
Um,
had so much fun watching Kenzie. I really found myself rooting for her. And has she had games with you before? I can't remember.
not live reality games, but over
Oh,
quarantine.
quarantine.
Yeah, over quarantine, I had a lot of online games that she would play, and she was always one of my favorites.
Were they long term?
I did both single night and long term.
Okay. Because I
Uh,
was gonna say maybe that's another thing that's hard to calculate too, because the change from having like weeks upon months to like get to know people and formulate theories on them, it's very different to have it shoved down to like 3 days or 1 day in this instance. Maybe it's a hard pacing to adapt to.
yeah,
So
definitely.
I forgive Kenzie for not realizing like you burnt this bridge. Like it's a tough hill to climb. Who's she nominated against again?
She was nominated against Oscar.
Oscar.
Yes.
And Oscar, I don't know. To me, if there were 2 rounds in a row where everyone's like, well, not 2 rounds in a row, but I felt like Oscar's narrative with everyone was like, oh, Oscar's on his own. He's off searching for advantages alone. Like, he's on the outs. But when he's on the block, yeah, he's safe. Yeah, let's keep him. He survived against Bowen, who, even in the short time, was social, was getting to know people, was a winner that proved he knew how to do well. And now he's on the block against Kenzie, who was affiliated with like the majority alliance and was affiliated with a lot of powerful people. And he's the obvious pawn to stay, but everyone's still like, oh, Oscar, what is Oscar up to? I would be getting alarm bells in my head about Oscar at this point. And I feel like no one had that at that
It's,
point.
especially as someone who won an HOH and a veto in the same round. He's also established himself as someone who can be very, very threatening at the game.
Up to that point, was he the only person to win 2 comps?
I believe so.
Oscar has wonderful juju, and good for him.
Good
Uh,
for him.
literally, when that was a horrible round for me. All out of the 4 final nominees, like 3 of them were on my draft team. Uh, this was not aligning with my vision board, but it's
It was a
okay.
tough week.
It was a
Um,
very tough week.
and with that double elimination, Meredith is also officially the last person from the couple quadrant of the game. What do you think she did right that let her be this person? And what do you make of her chances, especially coming out of that round as we're about to talk about round 5?
Okay. I remember during the draft, I believe both Owen and Miss Taylor both said out of the 4 that they both expected Meredith to be the last one standing. And
Yeah.
I remember disagreeing, and I remember thinking it's going to be Lucas. And looking back at it, I don't regret my choices at all. But I think what they said then came to fruition, where Meredith, yeah, okay. The 4 of them were on the bottom very quickly. And I think the 4 of them had very different approaches to being on the bottom. I felt like Liz was sort of like, well, my alliances, who I want to work with. It is what it is. Do with it what you will. I felt like Derek was kind of like, I'm crazy. And so, ooh, I'm going to confuse you. You can get me. And Lucas was like, let me double down. These people want to make me a target. Let me give them a reason to target me. Let me just go completely bold. I feel like Meredith's approach to being on the bottom was, okay, so what are they saying about me? They're saying I'm not social enough. Okay, let me confirm that for them. I've
Yes.
been uncomfortable in group scenarios. I am unable to find people to have one-on-one conversations. I'm just in the wrong places at the wrong time. you are all correct about me. And I feel like effectively that translates to, you all know my game. What
Right.
you are suspecting and gossiping about, you are correct. You know what I'm up to. I am a safe person in this game because you can read me. You guys are right. And I
Mhm.
think that approach, I won't say, I don't think it necessarily made her approachable because it's still been a minute for her to be pulled into alliances, but I believe it makes her underestimatable, if that's a word. It made her the one person out of that quadrant where people were like, we can beat Meredith. Derek's a question mark. Liz is a question mark. Lucas is a question mark. We can take Meredith. And I think that is what has brought her to jury. Is it correct to underestimate her? Who knows? It's still a very tough road for her to be the ultimate double-decker superstar #1. That's going to be very tough, but it's going to be tough for everybody. So I'm actually hopeful that there is still a path for Meredith. She's a smart cookie, and you know what? I'm not counting her out. I'm absolutely not counting her out of this.
Definitely, definitely. And especially as we start moving into this 5th round of the game, things have really shifted in the mechanics of the house.
I
So,
have to I have to I have to confess something to you
okay,
now.
you're fine.
So, my schedule has been busy, and
Oh yeah.
I thought we could push this off. I have no idea what happened in the first round of the jury. So I've
Oh,
been
that's
kind of
fine.
hiding it because the way you've been describing it makes me terrified. But now I'm here to rip the band-aid off. I'm watching LBB live feeds updates on Twitter. Give it to me. What happened?
Sure. Here's what happens.
Okay.
We have the skip button pressed officially. So that is the button that Josh read the card for in advance.
Okay. It
So
didn't tell
first it
anybody.
started with, sorry?
There was one that he didn't tell anyone about and only he knew,
Correct.
right?
This is the one he didn't tell anyone.
Okay.
So the button, so it starts with a normal round of the game. And then
Oh,
that next eviction ceremony, the person who is evicted is gone, but the surviving nominee is automatically the next HOH for
okay.
another normal round.
Okay.
So, with that as the pretext, what happened was Abrielle won the HOH.
Ooh, did she did was it luck?
It was so it's this balancing game. Do you know that game on Survivor where you hold a like statue on a post and it's like one-on-one battles?
Oh, and you
And
try and knock the other one off.
yes, we do
Interesting.
the same game, but instead of one-on-one, it's everyone at once.
Oh,
And so Abrielle was the last one standing in like the knock off the tile game.
were people targeting her?
Huh?
Were
No,
people?
she was hiding in the back, but she also admitted that she wasn't trying to win. When it was
I
down
was
between,
gonna
she
say if
wasn't
I
trying
was
to win.
Gabrielle, I would have thrown it. Honestly, if I was her.
It was between her and Oscar. And Oscar's fell off when he was trying to knock off Abrielle's. She later said she didn't realize they were the last two because it moved very quickly. And then she was suddenly the next HOH.
Oh god.
So early on, Allie says, "Hey, I'm close with everyone. If you nominate me against Meredith, I will stay and I'll be HOH to take over. And so let's get Meredith up there and out because she's the easy out." So then that's pretty much the plan. But then Allie starts to run with the HOH plan that she has. So she starts telling people, like, she tells Josh, like, hey, I'm going to be next HOH and Oscar's going to be my target, but I'll have to put you up as a pawn. And she also tells the boys, like, yeah, it's pretty obvious at this point there's a girls' alliance. So, I mean, we're just going to be honest with each other. And yeah, starts doing those kinds of things and is very much like, I'm going to be the next HOH. Um,
How do you get HOH-itis when you're not even, you're getting nominated? Oh, okay, okay.
and
Okay.
all at the same time, you have Meredith, who starts running with Mackenzie's speech and is like, Abrielle, Allie, and Maddie are a three. That's what Mackenzie said. They helped each other in the challenge. Whether or not it's true, it's believable enough from what's been happening. So
Yeah.
she tells that to the guys. She tells that to Rita, who then is worried about her position in the girls and goes to Tiffany, and they kind of talk about the way things have been going and the six that they trust. Um, Josh, at the same time, starts to go, I don't want to be nominated at all. If we just vote her out, she's gone. So he starts spreading that alongside Meredith's messaging about the worrying three of Abrielle, Maddie, and Allie. Oscar starts to say, all right, me, Josh, and Desh are the only guys left. As soon as the Merediths of the game are gone, we're next, y'all. So he starts doing that, and he has a pretty close relationship with Maddie and starts to work on her as well.
Oscar and Maddie? Yeah.
Yes. And additionally, I'll say Desh brought this up, though this was brought up by a couple people, that Allie has a rewind. So if she gets this auto HOH, she also has a rewind and is basically a fast pass to the final six, which is a lot of power. So with all of that, the vibe of the house is we can flip it on Allie, maybe. So
Is Abrielle privy to any of this?
Abrielle wants Allie to become the HOH because she knows that Allie is aligned with everyone. And she knows she's safe with Allie. So she hopes by propping up Allie as an HOH, Abrielle is safe, Allie burns bridges and is now the target in front of Abrielle, is Abrielle's plan. And then when she hears that Allie could be going home, is towards the end of the nomination round of strategizing. And she's like, okay, that could work too. But she was kind of hoping for Meredith to still go.
We've heard this story before. If Allie goes, does Abrielle's rewind expire, or is it just sole decision, Abrielle?
No, now she has the only rewind in the game if Allie goes out.
No, she has it. Okay.
So, power of veto come. So, nominations, Meredith versus Allie.
Yeah.
Power of veto competition. Meredith wins. So, the discussion becomes, how do we make sure Allie doesn't get worried and use her rewind? And also, how do we control what Abrielle will do if someone comes off and she's worried about Allie? So Meredith reveals that she doesn't plan on using the veto.
Oh my God.
And that she's willing to go up against Allie and just go one-on-one.
Allie has the rewind. She's good. Well, how confident is Allie? Sorry.
You have to play the rewind before the veto ceremony starts, before the last person enters the room.
Oh, so oh gosh. Okay.
And Allie thinks that Meredith will pull herself down and Oscar will go up, and then Oscar will be the target this week with Meredith for Allie's HOH. Mm-hmm. Additionally, they wonder. It gets out that Meredith plans to stay on the block to try to get HOH. But Allie thinks that if that happens, Meredith would use it on Allie to try to get a better opponent on the block because Allie's friends with everybody. So they plan to throw up Allie's plan was to have Abrielle throw up Maddie if Allie was pulled off. So then it's Maddie versus Meredith, with Meredith going home and Maddie as the HOH. So it's all those moving pieces. At the veto ceremony, Meredith keeps the noms the same, and there's nothing in the rewind box.
Yeah.
And Allie's gagged. And everyone tells Allie that Meredith just was going for it, trying to make a big play. And ultimately, at the eviction ceremony, unanimous vote, Allie's gone.
Unanimous?
Meredith becomes automatically the final 8 HOH, and Abrielle has the only rewind left in the game.
Oh man! Oh my God! That's what I missed on Glee?
Yes, so it blew up. It blew up, but it's okay because I do think the final nine is the turning point of the game, and this is the mid-season podcast, so it's
Right. Oh,
to recap the first half. So do not worry about that. And
we went
but yeah,
home.
that's everything that happened that week.
Wow. So
And
what? So Maddie had to have known.
Maddie knew Oscar pulled her into the plan. And
Because
because also when Ali made the announcement that the Girls Alliance was a thing, Maddie was there and Oscar was there, and so Oscar went to Maddie and said, "I thought we were close. Like, what's this new alliance?"
yeah. Oh my God. I was gonna say, like,
Yeah,
imagine Rita. Like, I
right.
imagine Oscar and Josh and Desh were probably not happy with Rita. And then, okay, do we have? Is there like a new development in Maddie and Rita's relationship? Because those two have the most reason in my mind to deny the guys' alliance.
Yeah,
Deny.
I don't remember them having a specific conversation
Okay.
together. I do know that Rita ran everything by the three guys before this vote, but she also very much straddled the line between between the girls and the guys as well. So she made sure all the girls were on board before she also did it. So I don't think it came across as her taking a stand in either direction, and I think everyone still thinks Rita's with them.
Rita is so good. Oh my
She's so
God.
good. She's so good. And
Okay.
and Maddie is more alongside the Oscar line of things. So she's trying to really. So she basically Oscar is like, if you do this, I promise you, you'll be fine. It won't come back to bite you. Just
Right.
trust me, kind of thing. And also at
Right.
that point, it was pretty much official where it was going to go. So she jumped on board. Um,
I will say about Allie, that is one thing that like for like a couple of rounds, multiple rounds in the pre-jury, she would just tell people like straight up, I'm in a great position.
right.
I will survive the block if I'm on it. And so to see a round where like that materializes it and there's an incentive to sit on there, it's almost like a perfect trap for Allie. But I think it was avoidable if she wasn't telling people like I'm gonna be HOH and I'm putting you up. Like, oh, why would you say that? She got too comfortable. She got survivor confident. Is that what
Yeah,
they call it?
yeah, she got survivor. She got survivor confident, and I think it was some of those, I guess, rookie level mistakes of
Yeah.
just not realizing by saying you're good with everyone, you're telling them that your relationship with them isn't really that special. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
it's a wild round. I look forward to seeing you react to it. But
Yeah.
I think.
You know,
Yeah,
sorry.
ask no questions. I'm fine. I'm good to go.
On top of which, I I am very, very shocked. I was very shocked this person was not on the bottom from the beginning. And then they kind of were. And I was like, okay, you're going home soon. And then they didn't. And now with this round, they're probably not going home for a while. I am shocked, pleasantly. Desh has come out of nowhere and just completely surprised me. Because like no one was like really gravitating towards Dash, rather other than like, oh, I like his energy, I like his vibe, he seems really cool. But like it's been like a growing power with Dash of like he's been like it's been a slow burn, as they say. And
Yeah,
now with this move with Ali going, I I don't. Meredith's not going to put Dash up. Abrielle has bigger fish to fry than Dash. Matt, like I don't see anyone going for Dash, and that's kind of what he did his first season, based off of what I remember people saying, right? Like he didn't win anything, but he was still like people kept him around because he was sort of the best of his side, and that allowed him to play the middle.
it very much the same. And I think that it's very similar to what you were saying about Meredith's game early. That
Mm,
I think or earlier. I think he's very good at just showing people that he's a known quantity in the game. And
mm,
at that, it's a trustworthy one, and it's a vote up for grabs you can depend on more or less. So I think that he did that without the I guess, automatic underdog position that Meredith had
Yeah.
as a member of a couple. I think that they have very similar tactics as far as why they're successful, in my opinion.
Man. And I've spent this whole season really hoping for a Meredith HOH. But now that we're here and like there's no one else for her to protect other than herself, and like none of her closest, like none of her first pick allies are in the game anymore. They're gone. So like realistically, like it's kind of like when like there's been a knock on her door and she's been like hiding in a bunker alone. Like, is it like a friend that's gonna save her from the apocalypse, or is it a killer? Like, is she gonna be like, okay, I'm out of the bottom, I'm in a group alliance, it's time to go after Abrielle, Maddie, Tiffany, it's time to do that? Or is it like, I'm still on the bottom, I need to make a huge move? Like, what is she gonna do? Oh no! And Abrielle has the rewind, and she's definitely getting nominated tonight. So like, gosh, okay.
Yeah, the game is basically reset at this point. So it's a very fun second half of the season. 20 episodes total. I think there's only 7 more coming out.
How many people are left?
8 people are left. Yeah. So instead of 2 episode rounds, they start being like 1 episode rounds. It all fits. It all fits in. Not to mention some of the remaining buttons may or may not help speed things up more or less, or change like the way things go. We'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, now that we've caught up to the present, first I want to hear your thoughts on the Big Brother remote. Do you have any large thoughts on how it's been going?
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. Just from a viewer's like, well, I've never been like proud on like a game, but like I imagine like when you have a season and you have a format and there are like twists that are like, you know, duos, you're going to be in duos for XYZ amount of weeks, or you know, MVP, you know, there's going to be a third nominee every week. Prepare. It allows you to like prepare yourself around it more, and you can incorporate that into your strategy, especially as the game goes on to the point where like the twist is just par for the course. This remote, the fact that not even y'all know the order in which the twists are going to happen, the players are going to have 100% less chance to prepare and adapt. And I think that remote really brings out like, okay, now you are in control of nothing in this game. There's going to be a wild twist that changes everything thrown at you each round, and you may not even know what it is. Can you trust people that are telling you the cards? Oscar didn't even tell anyone except Abrielle what it was. So who are you? Like, I think it tests how the players are going to be able to adapt when the rubber really meets the road. Like, you are getting this twist and automatically you're in it. Now what are you going to do? I like that sort of fight or flight that kind of gets refreshed each round with each press of the remote. I love it. Shout out Adam Sandler.
Shout out to Adam Sandler. His spirit is very much with us. Yeah, I still have never seen it.
We have to.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think whenever I'm trying to put a game together, especially given how fast ours are, I like to add as many ways possible for people to just step on each other's toes, even just a little bit, because it's those little things that allow the cracks to form from the start, and it just kind of grows from there. So that's just my philosophy. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, so as we wrap it up, do you have any closing thoughts on the season? Do you have an updated winner pick? Like, who's your money on?
Oh gosh. Okay. I remember after finishing the double, I was completely buying that Abrielle just wins. Like, I was completely down to be like, I mean, like, she keeps on, these alliances keep falling into her lap. She has her rewind. She has her final 2. She has a legitimate plan, like, and she has the means to secure that plan. It seems like a very easy road for Abrielle. Now, seeing this latest round in development, winner pick, based on my draft team, I'm horrible at this, but we're still going to take a shot. I think the winner may end up being... Okay, I'll pick three. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'll take 3.
Desh.
Mm-hmm.
I already talked about the fact that like it's been a slow burn, and literally consistently, inch by inch, bit by bit, Desh becoming someone who is immovable. And like he's like the amount of hold he has on people has been consistently growing, and that is extremely impressive. And with a HOH that was during a double where people are going to be even more critical of what you're doing, to be able to handle an HOH and just be cool, chill, and people can come and spill your guts to you. Mark of a great player, in my opinion.
Yes.
I
Desh
would
is a good
not be surprised to see a Desh win. Number 2, Maddie.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking about things I regret from the draft special. She wasn't picked for a team. And I remember saying about her, I feel like Maddie could be the drama of the season, just based off of little sprinkles that she's been putting in this episode 1. And she's just so lovable. And especially with Owen there, who like played with her, who confirmed like she is just a ball of sunshine. I was like, okay, this is like what you do. You're the ball of sunshine, and then you go home. But the fact that now Maddie is being pulled into the spotlight, and out of that 4, automatically I feel like people thought she was the least dangerous. You know, Kenzie had her targets on her. Abrielle, you know, was the HOH that round. She had eyes on her. And with Allie, obviously, like everyone was like, she's really good. People never really dug that deep into what Maddie was doing. And now hearing that Oscar has like given her this information, and that initial relationship is still holding strong, I can see where Maddie is kind of the last person that people would feel threatened by. Meanwhile, all the while she's like playing. I can see how this could be the beginning of Maddie not being targeted and still having the agency to be like, okay, now's the time to flip. This is who I need to work with. These are the groups. Like she has the tools to gain that knowledge. And I actually could legitimately see Maddie winning. And I'm very excited. And how wonderful would it be if one of the people that no one picked won? I'm rooting for Maddie. Number 3, and this will be my locked in. These are my 3. Rita.
Yes.
I do not subscribe to the idea that the first HOH can never win. But it is extremely hard to have that magnifying glass on you from the beginning. And we've already talked about how her goals from round 1 like were public to everybody and were very clear, and it formed a large part of the game. And I think later down the line, I think people will also realize that and be like, a lot of the problems in this game were literally single-handedly caused by Rita. But at the same time, I feel like we got a preview from the first week of what Rita can do under pressure.
Yes.
When Lucas was coming to her being like, I feel betrayed. You're against me. You manipulated me. Rita was calm, cool as a cucumber, no stuttering. She was ready. And if anyone were to want to target Rita, I can't see a reason why it wouldn't be the same, of Rita still able to deliver a calm, cool, collected package. And she's been doing relatively well in the comps too. She's not slouching. I can definitely see. I still think that Josh will emerge as too big of a threat. Oscar has had his eyes on him. Meredith, a lot of people that Rita has been working with have emerged as a threat. And for Rita, she's almost like the smallest threat out of all the big threats in the game.
Yes, I agree.
And I can see someone like accidentally deluding themselves into thinking Rita's not a threat to win. And she absolutely is. So I would say at this point, those are my top three for who I think could win. In no particular order other than alphabetical. Dash, Maddie, Rita. Locking it in. Make me a clown when they are the next three to go again, but those are my three.
No, three great picks. I think you are absolutely on the money as far as Dash's strengths in the game. I think I agree with you on Rita. I think she very much has that larger scale type of thinking that we were saying Lucas needed. And she does have that really strong one-on-one connections with truly everyone in the house. And she's also very smart with her information as well. And I think Maddie could find herself in a position a lot like Desh in that the vote up for grabs. And I think that she is a much more active player than I think she may be visibility wise as far as threat level goes. And I think especially after this alley round, we could see a lot of big moves back to back, which gives a lot of room for players like Maddie to really start to take hold too.
Granted, the fact that Meredith was spreading this 3, it's almost a curse that, this may be time for Maddie to finally taste the block. Maybe. Oh, my bad.
You're fine.
Maybe this is the time for Maddie to be on the block. If Maddie can find her way out of this round alive, I think she has a really good chance. Yeah. But I do love an underdog, and it's so wild. Like now Meredith's in the power position, and I'm still like, but is there a way for Abrielle to still win? Like they're all so rootable. This is horrible. Incredible. Winners, all 9 of them. Please.
All winners. Yeah. I'm so happy with the season. I think that the pre-jury had a lot going on narratively. And I think this all really comes to a head in this second half of the game. So I could not be more excited. Thank you to everyone out there who's watching. The second half is just as good, if not better than the first half. So definitely stick with us. Jodilly, anything else going on with you? Any other comments or plugs to make?
Well, yes. Again, watch Ascendance Live. There are 2 episodes left, and I'm in them. If you want to see more of the conspiracy board, gosh, it's there. And this has been an extremely wonderful season to watch. Oh, I really have no clue who's going to win, and I think they're all lovely, amazing people. And I will be following them all on twitter.com as soon as I find them. Thank you for having me back. And if there is a battle back for the draft team, I want to pick everyone. I had no idea who any of these people were, but I've become super. I live. This has been wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's a huge compliment that you've stuck with it and came join me tonight. It's a big help. I appreciate it.
Oh, one more thing. I have to do it. Cool deal.
Cool deal. Perfect. Well, yes, thank you to everyone for watching. I'm Taylor Luke. If you want to find our show, I should have said this at the start, but if you search Survivor Goat Island, you will find my channel. If you search Taylor Luke, I should be pretty high up there. The Greenhouse game will also get you our channel, and Luke's Big Brother 19. Any of those searches will get you our channel. And also on the Live Reality Games group, I post links to episodes often, so you can find us. But yes, have a great night, everyone. Thank you to those who stuck with us, and we'll see you for the finale podcast. Ooh.